There's one more person I wanted to ask you about. You knew Eric Dolphy.
Yes, loved Eric Dolphy, as a player and as a person.
Uh huh.
Yeah, one of the best people I ever met, man. I love it. He was very humble and polite,
Mm.
which was not necessarily the usual MO of jazz musicians in those
Sure.
days. A lot of them were very brash, and their faults, man. You know, they can be very aggressive sometimes, angry, pissed off. Often behave badly with women and things like that. Eric was sweet, man. He was sweet and very humble. He had a lot of self-doubt, which, you know, a lot of criticism that he got, he really took it to heart.
Yeah.
Actually, the only time I ever wrote an angry letter to Downbeat in my life was because somebody had panned Eric Dolphy. And I wrote in, this man is a great, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is some of the best music you'll ever hear.
Mhm.
The man's a master, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the only time I bothered to. Now, people write silly shit. I say, hey, you know,
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that out there.
whatever. Well, you know,
Yeah.
they're entitled to their opinion. But he was, and he was very, you know, he took an interest in me, which, you know, it's hard for me to even comprehend that because I was just a young punk trying to learn how to play. In those days, I was trying a lot of instruments, you know.
Mhm.
First instrument was vibes, actually. First
Oh, okay.
gigs I ever did was on vibes.
Oh, interesting. Sure.
Drums pretty soon because I got the drums from Shaughnessy from the one. But you know, I played piano. I had a trumpet for a while because I got one at summer camp. I played trumpet. I played bass. Same thing at summer camp. I got to play bass, and we'd play little classical pieces with the bow.
Mhm.
I loved that. If I had took a bass home, I would have kept playing it. But
Sure.
these were things. Anyway, and Dolphy was fascinated by that. Bobby, what are you playing? Vibes and trumpet and bass and drums, you know. And I'm thinking, well, I said, but Eric, badly, you know. I mean, I can't play any of them, but yeah, I'm messing around, you know. And so that just he was even interested. I also saw him play a lot with Train, and that was beautiful. I saw Eric with Mingus, and I got to play with him a few times.
Wow.
You know, as a kid. And I had a dream. It was a few years back, but it was a beautiful dream where Eric was interacting with the me of now, the grown-up rock alarm.
Yeah.
And he was hearing how I play, and he was saying, "Yeah, Bobby, I like what you're doing. It's different." He said, "Yeah, I never would have thought you'd go like this. You know, I didn't know what you'd be, but you know, this is really good. It's different, man." You know, he liked it, gone in my own direction. You know, and we played in the dream like the Dolphy of old with the me of now, or of a few years back. And it was beautiful in my dream. For a while, there's a dear friend of mine, Jim Warshauer, who we call him Kritavi. He buys and sells horns on eBay, saxophones. He's a saxophone player.
Mhm.
That's how he makes his living. And he had Dolphy's old alto for quite a few years. It didn't belong to him, but someone had entrusted him to have it.
Mhm.
So he would come over and play that horn.
Wow, isn't that something?
And invite certain players if they were of a certain level, if they wanted to use it, if he could, he'd bring it over for them.
Mhm.
I did a duet record with Alan Chase, and Alan plays Dolphy's horn. on
Yeah,
that.
I was listening to that. It's a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful record. Alan's amazing.
Alan
He's
is
an
amazing, man.
player.
And a couple of tunes that made the cut of the record, he played the Dolphy horn.
Wow.
And that horn had a vibe already, man. It had music already in it, man. There's no question, because people played different when they played that horn.
Sure.
And anyway, he recently made a deal to sell it to some museum in Arizona. Seemed like nice people, and they were going to take care of the horn and keep it playing too with the right people that still use it. So it went, but before it went, he decided that he wanted to record one time. So he came over, and Gyandas, my engineer, we did a duo record with Kritavi where he was only played the Dolphy alto. And it was a very funky looking horn. I mean, it wasn't clean and shiny and gold. You know, look, this thing had been played, because he was like trained. He was one of those guys, he played 18 hours a day.
Sure.
You know? And you know, it was interesting, the shape. When he played, he kind of leaned forward. He played like he had this kind of leaning forward thing.
Uh-huh.
So the horn had taken on that shape.
Interesting.
And the keys of the, I don't know what they're called, but you know, the little
yeah,
pearl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Caps.
When
Yeah,
your
yeah.
finger it meets the horn. You know. They were worn down to almost nothing from sweat.
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
Because he had played that horn hard. But I noticed that, you know, it's interesting. Some people, there was one young student, he was very talented. He was a friend of my ex-roommate, Armir. He's a good kid, man. He could play, too, saxophone player. But, you know, some of them, they don't let the horn affect them. They just do what they already do.
Sure.
But most of the people, they get that horn, they start playing different.
Yeah.
In other words, they take what the horn gives them.
Sure.
And invariably, I would say that when people play that horn, they play more raw, more out, and at the same time more bluesy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much Dolphy, like way out there, but really bluesy.
Yeah.
You know, really rooted in the down home. Yeah, he was, you know, my favorite on all his instruments: alto, bass, clarinet, flute. Best flute player I ever heard.
Amazing.
And I used to see him play bass clarinet with with no mic really, and be heard over
Wow.
Elvin.
That's
I used to
wild.
play bass clarinet a little bit, and it's a beautiful instrument, but it's not generally a loud horn.
No, you gotta.
It's kind of a subtone. I mean, you can mic it well, you know,
Sure.
so it's loud, but on its own, it's not as loud as a saxophone or
Right.
a trumpet, for sure. He played it like great, but also loud with Elvin, and the young Elvin was bashing. The drums was loud, and you know, I got to hear him play that. He played it with Mingus too, you know. So I'm really glad I knew him. You know, when I lived on that building in Central Park West, it overlooked the park, and I was on the 4th floor. Max Roach was on the 14th floor. I spent a lot of time up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Max and Abby were close with my parents. Abby kept the relationship for many years after. I look out in the park, and I could see Eric Dolphy playing flute, sitting on a rock. He would play with the birds.
Mm.
And you could barely hear it because it's New York street traffic and noise and cars and people. But I could just barely hear this little flute like wafting in the air. It was so magical. He looked like some genie or something, way out sitting on a rock. So I never forgot that, watching him play a flute in the park with the birds. And his ear was so attuned that he could play what the birds were singing and get them interacting with him,
That's
because
amazing.
he could hear their intervals.
Yeah.
The composer Messiaen obviously studied birds, really checked them out, but he's written pieces for orchestra that sound like a flock of birds.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most organic sounding classical music I ever heard. It's
Sure.
Messiaen. But anyway, Dolphy was into that too. Yeah, a special cat. Nobody played like that, man. And
No.
like I say, very polite, very humble, really beautiful spirit. When he passed, that broke my heart. Maybe even more than Train. This was because it was something personal with Dolphy, you know. Train, I never really talked to. I saw him a lot. He knew who I was, because, I mean, he recognized me. Because one time he saw me looking into the window, the half note. He just gave me this beautiful smile, like a recognition. He said, yeah, that's the kid that's here every night.
Sure.
I used to go see Train every night. If he was playing 6 nights, I was there 6 nights usually.
Mm.
And but Dolphy, you know, I actually got to know a little bit and talk with, and he, you know, he was. I think he was in the house. He was certainly in the building a lot.
Mm.
Yeah. That when he passed, that broke my heart.
Yeah.
I was working a gig in the Catskills for the summer with Dave Liebman.
Okay.
And I was like 16, and when Dolphy passed, I went a little crazy. I had to say, I went kind of nuts. You know?
Mm. Boy, what a shame.
Yeah, I don't know. It affected me very hard, man. He was too young. Train too. But
Sure.
Anyway, anyway.
Yeah.
But I did, you know, we did meet again in the dream
Yeah,
world, in the
right.
spirit world.
That's something.
Yeah, great cat, man.
Mm.